Sometimes pain opens a doorway instead of a dead end. Most people never even notice it. But when our guest stepped through his, it set off a chain of events he never could have predicted. Hi, and welcome to the U World Order Showcase podcast, where we feature life, health, transformational coaches, and spiritual entrepreneurs stepping up to be the change they seek in the world. I'm your host, Jill Hart, the Coach's Alchemist, on a mission to empower coaches and entrepreneurs to amplify their voice, monetize their message, and get visible. If you're ready to start attracting premium clients without chasing algorithms or hunting people down like a banshee on a mission, head over to coachesalchemist.com and schedule your free client acquisition audit. It's the first step to building a business where your clients seek you out rather than you having to hunt them down. Today, we are chatting with Alex Crowther. Alex is the CEO of Pain Coach Academy and a former global advertising executive whose life was upended by years of relentless chronic pain. What should have ended his career and identity instead sparked a complete transformation, leading him into neuroscience, mind-body healing, Reiki, and shamanic work. Now he trains pain coaches worldwide to help people calm their nervous system, retrain their brains, and reclaim meaning. His upcoming book, Reframing Pain, brings this life-changing work to everyday language. Welcome to the show, Alex. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you. Wow, that's like the best intro I think I've ever had. Thank you. I love your intro anyway. It like explains what the whole show is. It's awesome. Well, nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too. So let me ask you the big question. What's the most significant thing in your opinion as individuals we can do to make an impact on how the world is going?
We gotta slow down, which I still have a problem with. Honestly, I was just having this conversation with someone this morning. Bad habits are really hard to change, but it's the number one thing that I still have a problem with. I still struggle. I've got a lot of ambition and there's a lot of things I want to do, and I keep still wanting to go quickly. And it doesn't serve me well. It doesn't serve me well. It doesn't serve many people very well. We got to slow it down.
I agree. And because we're going to be talking about pain in our conversation, how does all that relate to how we experience pain in our bodies by
Yeah,
not slowing down?
yeah. Look, it's a tough one, and again, it's like the funny conversation I was having. I was actually in a group coaching session, believe it or not, earlier. I still go to group coaching as a client, not the coach. And someone said it's probably in your DNA, and maybe it is. I don't know. But I just naturally, I rush. I could have 3 hours at the airport. I'm still running through the airport. The problem with me and the problem with anybody that lives with complicated pain, and I use that word complicated intentionally because it is complicated and no two people are the same. And, it's just complicated. The thing is our nervous systems are activated. They're on high alert. And, by rushing and chasing and putting ourselves under these false deadlines that I do, that we all probably do, all we're doing is amping up that system even more. So yeah, slow it down. I mean, before I came to your show, I had 10 minutes, but I sat here and I used it intentionally. I did a very simple breath work just for 2 minutes before I came on the show. That's my definition of slowing it down. It's not going having a hour-long nap. I don't need to do that. It's just taking these moments throughout the day, these intermittent points every few hours to just take a breath, explore nature. That doesn't mean going for a hike in the woods. It means step outside and, smell the fresh air.
Yeah, I'm kind of like torn between two things, but I used to smoke when I was younger, and we had smoke breaks. But smoke
Yep.
breaks were great because they made you go outside for a minute
Yeah.
and just, get away from your desk and just slow down for 10 minutes
Yeah.
because it takes about 10 minutes to smoke a cigarette. Not that
Yep.
people know that
Yeah. And
anymore,
it's
but
probably that's probably, 7 to 10 minutes is probably the ideal amount of time that we need just to kind of let things reset a little bit. And the weird thing is, and again, where my conversation earlier went is, the point of getting up and going outside or going across the hall or whatever it is, it seems like it's a disruption to your day. But the reality is, just taking that few minute break and then coming back, it's sort of like a little bit of a reset anyway. And when you come back, you're gonna be just that little bit more efficient anyway. And so it's not a false economy. It's a helpful action. Just like that smoke break back in the day, when you take that 7 or 10 minutes out, you come back from that and you're rejuvenated, and I don't know, it's a good little healthy break. Well, it wasn't not smoking, but it was a good break.
But the idea is still the same, to just
Absolutely.
change change your environment, change your focus, let
Hmm.
your mind reset.
Yeah,
Do some intentional breathing these days. Maybe we take breath breaks instead of smoking breaks, where
that
we
would be
go
awesome,
and
wouldn't
we just practice
it? Yeah,
breathing. I have a saying, it came from Braveheart, but everyone takes in air, but few truly breathe. Because
that's that's
we
right.
we like suck in air, but it's really shallow and it's not really helpful. And I think
Yeah,
if we intentionally like fill our lungs and stretch our arms out to allow for more capacity for oxygen, we're already living in a world where the oxygen levels are much lower than they were even 40 years ago. Um, it's just really important that we take time and do things intentionally. Not
yeah. My hope is
rely
that
on.
you hear about some of these new practices in schools where they're teaching some kids these mindfulness practices. My hope is that the understanding shifts enough that it's not just recess. It's described in a really intentional way as this mental health or whatever sort of like reset break, so that again, if we build habits is what it's all about. And I'm going to try and teach myself a new habit. I know for me that a habit takes about 40 days. So if I do something consistently for 40 days, I'm going to try and get into the habit of grabbing my dog and putting it on the leash and taking it for a little walk. Now, we've got a nice big yard here, and my dog can be outside running around. Doesn't really need to go on a leash walk. But my issue is when I want to take her downtown, she doesn't want to be on the leash. So I figured that by me, I've got a problem, which is I need to take these little breaks. And if I do this 40 days of practice, I'm going to get my dog used to going out for a little 20-minute walk on the leash, and she's going to come and bother me. So I'm going to get this forced kind of like break. So again, we've all got to just try and figure out little things that we can do to get, because I'll sit in this chair for 12 hours. And often, I forget to pee. I'll get so in the zone, I won't even remember to get up and go to the bathroom.
Then you're like, I've had to go for an hour.
At least, yeah, it's not good.
Get it.
It's just not
Just one more
good.
thing.
Yeah,
Be careful when you create a monster when you start walking your dog. I
I
speak from
know.
experience.
Yeah, yeah. No, maybe that's not what I do. I don't know yet, but that's what I was thinking.
I love walking my dog. And we leave our phones at home. My husband and I do it every day. It's 2.5 mile walk. And everybody in the community knows who we are. Or
That's
those old
awesome.
people walking down the street with their dog.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It's a good thing.
We know all the dogs in the neighborhood.
Cool.
We name them something else. When it comes to pain, how does all of this stuff kind of work together? And what kind of pain are we talking about when you talk about chronic pain? How do
So let
people
me
experience
should
that?
tell should tell you my little story. Should tell
Yeah,
you my
tell me
journey.
your story.
All right. And I haven't told you my story, so it'll be new for you. So, if I go back to 2012 as my birthday, so May of 2012, I was actually living in Singapore at the time, and I came back. I had a house here in Michigan, and I came back, and I was interviewing. Actually, I was going to be interviewing the next day in New York for a job, big job running General Motors advertising business. And so I went to the mall to buy myself a pair of shoes on my birthday, a little present for myself. And I'm driving home up a normalish sort of like B road. and the highway actually comes off onto this road in a rather quick way. Lady comes off the highway, I-75, great big highway, and she doesn't know the intersection. She's not local, and ends up running right through the lights at about 50 to 55 miles an hour and hits me side on. So I'm just literally going through the traffic lights, minding my own business. I was in a great mood too. I remember just being happy as can be. It was a beautiful sunny spring day, and I was in a really good mood. Like I think I was singing on the radio and da di da di da. Life was good. Anyway, she T-bones me. I was in a Jeep Wrangler. So they sit a little bit higher up, and thank God. Um, the hood of her car was a little bit lower, and it clipped at the bottom of my door. Thank goodness, instead of going into the door, and that's what saved
Yeah.
me. It ended up flipping my car up into the air. I went airborne apparently, and then rolled 3 times and hit the utility pole. Um, and the EMS was called to a presumed fatality because I was laying there, not moving, upside down in the car. Um, EMS got there. I was only about 3 or 4 minutes from the Troy fire rescue place, and they came out. They got me. I kind of came to as they were getting into the car, and they extracted me pretty like it was easy. Got me out the car, no problem. And I was sort of like dazed as you would expect, and they were sort of brushing me off, and they determined because I was already moving around that I didn't have a neck injury or anything else like that. So I was ending up sitting on the grass, and my thumbs were both out of their joints. They were both because of the way I was holding the steering wheel,
Uh-huh.
and the way I hit whatever else, my thumbs were both like completely jacked up, and my hands looked weird just because my thumbs were like going the wrong way.
Mhm.
Anyway, we go to the hospital, and uh, I don't really remember a whole lot of what happened. I do remember them putting my thumbs back in the joint, which was not a terribly pleasant experience. And then
Imagine.
I saw I saw some kind of hand doctor, and he said I was going to need surgery, an arthroplasty, because both of my thumb joints had collapsed. Um, but other than that, I mean, other than it being kind of like uncomfortable, I was let go, went home, went to my job interview the next day, got the job, um, and came back, did the surgery. Um, and everything was fine except for the fact, a few days after I had the cast on, my hand just kept swelling, and the cast was really, they make sure there's room for swelling in the cast, but my hand was pressing against the cast, so they redid that. Then I ended up with an infection in the pins, and so they had to take the pins out and redo that. And then the incision would not heal, and it wouldn't heal. And I just felt like I kept going back to this doctor every few days. I was always back. Um, that everything else heals up, and then I keep going back complaining. I'm like, this still really hurts. Like I was in a lot of pain. And they did all the imaging and this, that, and the other. And he's like, there's nothing wrong. Like, what is your problem, you big baby? Um, eventually I have to keep going back, and I'm talking about going back to the same guy like 15 times. He's like, I don't know if I can help you anymore. I'm going to give you a referral to another hand specialist. Sends me to someone else. She does all the same workups. She looks at it. She's like, I don't see anything wrong. At which point I'm thinking I'm a lunatic. That I'm, this is the point at which people start saying things like it must be in your head, or you're seeking medication, or any one of these things, right? So thereon kind of begins about 10 years worth of, literally 10 years of me seeking treatments for figuring out why my hands hurt. But during this course of time, it goes from my left hand being really painful to my right hand being really painful. And the kind of pain I'm talking about is if you imagine like smacking your hand in a door, um, and then that residual pain that you get, like, that once the stun shock is like worn off, that throbbing pain that you have, a few seconds later, that's the sort of pain I'm talking about. And so one hand to the next hand, and it's about every 18 months, another part of my body started to hurt. So it went from left hand, right hand, left shoulder, right shoulder, and on, various parts of my body. And I was always seeking things out, trying to figure out what the hell to do. I went at one point a couple of years without doing anything. I'm like, I just have to ignore this thing. Except I can't. I'm miserable. I'm like deeply unhappy person at that point, depressed and whatever. Just not a good time at all. Then I eventually got to a point where I I couldn't really deal with it, and I was complaining to someone who had a relationship with the CEO of a big hospital group, um, and it's really unfortunate this is how it had to work. But I ended up getting an appointment very quickly with the head of the pain management clinic of that hospital. So a pretty well-known hospital. I get in there on the kind of by slipping through the net kind of thing, and I ended up meeting with this head because the big boss had kind of like got me in. I got this super treatment, and so the pain clinic guy comes in along with two other doctors, and they ran a bunch of tests on me over the course of a few hours. Came back in and said, you have absolute classic complex regional pain syndrome. And it's like definitive. There's no two ways about it when they looked at the criteria. Now, I'd suspected this several years earlier. I knew I fit all of the criteria, but I couldn't find anybody that would spend the time to listen to me. Anyway, the problem with that diagnosis is I get the diagnosis, but there's not really, apart from feeling somewhat validated that I now know what this is, the flip side of that conversation is, and it may get worse and there's nothing we can do. We can try, we can try this or we can try that. The problem with most medical doctors is the solution is one, either a surgery or two, typically
Chemicals.
an opiate of some sort, right? And I didn't know, I knew enough about opiates to know how well they work for chronic pain. And that wasn't really a great thing. But look, I kind of did what I was told for the most part. Um, but then, and very deliberately, you can see that chair in the corner behind me, right?
Hmm.
I spent a lot of time in this sort of uh, corner armchair, basically wrapped up in a blanket, shivering. I had my nervous system was so messed up that I can be out in 90, 100-degree weather and have the goosebumps. I can be outside in minus 10 degrees with no shirt on, I'll be sweating. My nervous system is just so confused and like fundamentally broken that it doesn't know what's what. Um, and I lost all of my hobbies, nothing that I enjoyed doing, I could keep doing. I never wanted to go out. I became basically a recluse. I just heard all the time. Loud noises were a trigger to me. Strong smells were a trigger to me. Being touched, literally my skin on my arms is painful. And so, someone brushing up against me. So I never wanted to go out. And I basically became, this miserable hermit in a chair with no life. And I'd worked really hard for many, many years to build a good career and, you know, by all definition, build success, what we believe success looks like, what we are sort of taught to believe success looks like anyway. And I got to a point, Jill, honestly, where I just wanted to be done. I was ready, and I don't want to be kind of like talking too much about, really dark things, but I was at a point where there was no value for me to be kind of on this earthly plane, so far as I was concerned. And I was ready to be just done. And I decided that what I would do instead of just swallowing a bottle of methadone or something was I wanted to talk to a counselor of some sort who could help me kind of figure this path out, where I could get my affairs in order, and not leave kind of trauma and devastation kind of in my wake.
Mhm.
And so that very next morning, I got up and I did a Google search for, I think the search was pain counselor, something pretty vanilla. And
Mhm.
I just knew that I needed somebody that understood enough about like really deep pain to not try and convince me, that they would know enough that they would help me. Anyway, that was my logical thinking at the time, and it wasn't very logical, I know. Um,
It's hard
so
to be logical when you're in pain.
yeah, it was really, really hard. And actually, you can see me fidgeting, just like thinking about this whole experience kind of like gets me moving. Anyway, I through that search, the very first it was like these words jumped up the screen at me. So like this thing, like the Google search comes up, and these words, pain coach, kind of like almost jump off this. It's like they kind of like come off the screen at me. Um, I'm like, pain coach? What the hell's a pain coach? I've had this thing for 10 years. I've never heard these two words together, pain and coach. I'm like, what the hell is that? Never heard of this. And I'm like, well, that clearly that is speaking to me. So I think it's like 6:40 in the morning. I called the number, and I thought I would leave a message, was my plan at 6:40 in the morning, but somebody answered, a woman called Jenny. This lady, Jenny, answers, and I explain what's going on. And she's the CEO of this company, this digital health company. She talks me through what pain coaching is, and really what it is, how it works, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. Okay, that sounds good. Sounds hopeful. Hopeful was what I thought. And I think it was either the next, I don't remember if it was that very same day or very quickly the next day, that I met with this lady, Jareen, who was and still is my pain coach. Jareen, I credit with saving my life. She's a great friend. I happen to be able to work with her now, which is a really weird turn of events. But yeah, Jareen was just like this rock star who saved me. But what was crazy about this is my first appointment, which went on for about an hour, might have been even an extended appointment, but for at least 59 minutes of an hour session, she asked me what was going on, and I just talked. I told her my whole story from the car accident to really all of the detail in between of what had happened, and this sort of like not gaslighting, but kind of minimizing what was going on with me and all the stuff. And I got off that call, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Excuse me, sorry my language here, but
You're good.
but but it was the first time I'm thinking. It's the first time someone's actually listened to me. It was the first time I was actually able to explain what was going on, that I was being seen and heard and understood. And, just by the way that you're nodding your head, Jareen was actively engaged, and she was writing and she was nodding and she was having expressions. And like I knew that she was in. Um, and so I felt deeply sort of like connected and seen at that point. Then I was seeing her 3 times a week. I mean, that's how bad things were for me at that point, to begin with. And then next appointment, she says to me, "Do you know what pain is?" I'm like, "Well, of course I know what pain is. Like I live with it every day. Of course I know what pain is." She's then like, do you really understand what pain is?" And I said, "Well, I think so. I think I understand what pain is. It's I touch the stove and it's hot, and my brain says that's hot." And she's like, "Well, yeah, kind of." But then she breaks it down, and she really starts to explain kind of the mechanics of pain, what we call in pain coaching, pain neuroscience education, PNE. um, and I think over the course of one session, I went from like not really understanding pain to understanding kind of like, okay, now I have a pretty good grasp of how pain works. Now, there's studies, Jill, that show that if you have two people and you show one, if you explain to one person pain neuroscience and you don't the other, one person's pain experience will drop by at least 1 point, maybe sometimes two, 1 to 2
Yeah.
points. just by understanding what the experience is and how it's working. Uh, and there's lots of reasons for that. So that was that was my second session. Then I go into sessions 3, 4, 5, and 100, and I'm learning many skills and tools. You know, I learned to meditate during this point of time. I was given hope, which was the single greatest thing and the greatest gift you can give anybody that's living with a chronic illness is hope. And you know, she sort of committed to me that we were going to be able to get me to a point where I was going to be able to get up and out of that chair and like not to give up and da 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 da, and all the great stuff. But I learned incrementally, these tools, and none of them are very, no, like no one tool is that sophisticated, whether it's, you know, yeah, cutting out the negative self-talk or breathing or and the sorts of
Tapping,
tools, right? Yeah,
tapping.
yeah,
It's like that should not work. You're just,
yeah,
tapping on your body parts, but it
yeah,
works
yeah,
so
yeah,
well.
yeah.
I,
So it's all of these things, right? So effectively you're building this tool belt or toolbox full of skills. And you're learning and I was pretty vicarious reader, and so Jareen would always be giving me new books to read or sending me poems or just things that would inspire me. And so look, over this course of probably about 6 months of fairly intense both one-on-one coaching but group coaching as well, and that was really key for me, was by being in group coaching sessions I was able to see that this wasn't me alone on an island. This was me and 7 or 8 other people, who no two people had the same illness necessarily, although I think one did, but we all had something different, and we all had different issues. Someone's losing their house, someone's lost their job, someone's lost a spouse. We've all, like, everybody's got lost and whatever. We've got these shared experiences, but what unites us is complicated pain. And by listening to other people's stories of loss or success, and the love for those people builds so quickly and strongly too. But even that, so that experience kind of comes into the fold and whatever. But over this course of about 6 months, incrementally, I start to just feel a little bit better. Um, and it was sort of like the first time that I realized that healing wasn't about being pain free. It just isn't. I'm not pain free. In fact, I've had a few days of pretty high pain, but I know how to manage. I know how to bring pain down to a level that I can, ultimately thrive in the world. Uh, and so that's what kind of coaching gave me. But I did have like this aha moment that you'd kind of mentioned earlier, and that was I discovered at one point that when I was doing something, when I was working in some way that was either doing something to do with um, pain or being in service of others, my pain level would go to almost so low as that I didn't even notice it anymore. So I think at the time, the first time I realized that, I was writing a blog of some sort about pain. And I remember being done with it. And I'm like, holy crap, like I've just had an hour where I didn't feel pain. And so it became this like little experiment of like running back to the computer. And I think I was right back here and I did something else. I'm like, I've just had another hour of doing something that I can control all by myself that doesn't include any pain. And so that led me to, I got to find out more about this pain coaching thing. I don't know what I need to know, but I'm going to go find it out. So I spoke to Jareen. I asked her, you know, all sorts of questions and who does the training and this, that, and the other. And she put me in touch with the folks, Pain Coach Academy folks, who do this sort of training. So I meet with Paul from Pain Coach Academy, and Paul and Becky, who are the founders of this business, the original founders. Um, great, their skill sets are in coaching. They're not necessarily these great marketeers and business people. And so I have skills that they need, and they have something that I need. And so there's this thing called coaching. And so I find myself supporting Paul and Becky and helping them a little bit on this thing and that thing and the other thing. And I'm doing it because actually it makes me feel a bit better. And then all of a sudden we have this conversation, which is, well, why don't we sort of formalize this? And we need someone that can run the business so that we can do the things that light us up. So here I am today, kind of leading Pain Coach Academy, and I've never been more satisfied in my life. I found true alignment. I found my meaning and my purpose. I always said that, you know, I, I, I always said that there has to be meaning to me having this pain. I have to give it meaning somehow. And so I've done that. But what's really remarkable now when I start to look back is I've never really been in flow. You know, I jumped the ladder in my career because I worked really, really hard. But it was work. It was hard work to climb the ladder. Whereas now I can sit here and my work just flows. It like falls out of me and it's easy and it's enjoyable. And I never knew what that was. You know, I'd heard people explaining this sort of thing and I didn't really understand it. But now I'm like, oh my gosh, I get it. I completely get it. And so, look, my mission now is, we've got to get this out to the masses because we all do what we're told, when we're unwell, which is we trot off to the doctor. The problem with the system is we're treating this this thing called pain, which sits in the brain, um, as an experience, as something that we can treat the same way we've treated it for 100 years, which is through surgeries and medicine. And, in the last 20 plus years, we've learned so much. We've learned that, experiences of safety and all these wonderful things that we know we now can do don't reside in the doctor's office. And like, we know that we can help people living with chronic pain. And so, yeah, that's the goal. I mean, we're having conversations with the insurance carriers, and I think Medicare is going to get a code for pain coaching soon enough, which is
That's
really, really positive.
fantastic.
Yeah, that's a step in the right direction. It's been a real slog, but that's why I'm getting on these podcasts and I'm making a lot of noise about pain coaching. Look, if you're living with complicated chronic pain, you name it, find a coach. Really, you don't have a whole lot. You got a lot to gain and very little to lose. Have a few sessions with a pain coach, and see. Like for me, it is the difference. If you can bring your pain down 2, 3, 4 points, it's enough. It's enough calming that nervous system. What's really cool about it is once you calm the nervous system down, it may just be enough to get you out in the world, for one. But for two, once you calm that nervous system down and then you go to the doctor, then what's really interesting is the doctor can look at you and look at those underlying things that are going on and be much more, much more like clear about what's actually going on. And so, this isn't it's not like this is the instead of. This just completes the process that already exists, and it just needs to get further upstream. We got to get this further upstream in the process where it becomes the standard of care. Because again, if we can bring the levels down. Maybe that's enough. Maybe we don't need to be putting people then on opioids that we know are actually only going to make things worse. Spinal cord stimulator failure is huge. And I was just looking at actually what I was approved for a spinal cord stimulator, which I know wouldn't have worked long term. And I was being told about pain pumps as well. Same thing. A spinal cord stimulator, when you look at all of the costs of the device and the testing and the visits and everything else, is somewhere between $58,000 and $90,000 as a procedure cost. What does pain coaching cost? I mean, like, you have a very good sense of what coaching costs. I mean, you could do 2 years worth of very intense pain coaching for probably under $20,000. And so uh, it would definitely benefit the insurers to get this way upstream, and that's the goal. That's the message. So anybody that's living with, if you're living with, chronic complicated pain, come to Pain Coach Academy, and I've got a resource on there, which is Find a Pain Coach. And so we'll help. My goal is literally just to help anybody not be in the same chair as I was in. We'll try and link you up with a coach. But what I think is just like so incredibly cool is this kind of career of pain coaching now, because you know you like I've always wanted a job with purpose and like meaning and feeling like I'm doing something amazing in this world. And the incredible thing is, in a relatively short period of time, the coach is the guide, the person that holds your hand and takes you on this journey and works, right there with you, as good coaches do, to be able to see somebody fundamentally change their life. And you're at the center of that. Like, oh my God, like that's huge. And I'm now surrounded by these coaches that do this with people all day long, and the stories are incredible and they're really enriching and amazing. And so, one of the things that we figured out is, obviously somebody that's had a pain experience. I mean, pain changes you. I am so not the person I was, I don't know, 10 years ago. Uh,
Makes you
even,
question your sanity,
yeah, yeah,
especially when you get told over and over that there's nothing wrong with you.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so one of the things we figured out is like people that have had or have complicated pain who now can manage it through having been through a process like this make the most incredible coaches themselves.
Yeah.
They come with deep empathy, and we can train the skills that they need, the knowledge and the learning that they need, we can teach. And what's also really cool is, look, me going into an office now with a 40-hour week in an office and stuff would be incredibly difficult. Whereas, you know, a job as a coach allows you to, you know, go outside, to lay down when you need, to meditate for the afternoon if that's what you need. And so, what we're on a bit of a do is to see if we train the experience like that, need the flexibility and the ability to be home while at the same time earning a nice living. And so it's just something that we're trying to do.
So, Alex, let me ask you this, because you're a little bit, uh, I think we're back. When it comes to how you help people, it sounds like it's twofold. On the one side, you help coaches or people that have maybe they've gone through a pain experience or they're currently, on the other side of it, to who maybe want to reach out to the people that are behind them in pain and looking for solutions. You help train them to become pain coaches. That's one
Yep,
silo. And then
yep.
the other silo is if you're listening today and you're in pain, chronic pain, and you're thinking, I've just got to live with this. That's not true. You can just go to paincoachacademy.com, and there's a free ebook over there that's called Reframing
Yep.
Pain. And people can go and download that, and you will hook them up with a pain coach to help them at whatever level you're at. You mentioned $20,000 over a couple of years.
Oh,
That's not a hard, fast thing. And I'm
oh
sure
no,
that
no,
you
no, no.
guys work with people in every level, and you already are talking about the fact that you're helping people in terms of getting Medicare to be accepted, and insurance companies getting that little number that you need, the magic number, to get them to help offset some of these
Yeah.
expenses. So it's really more, you're in it almost from three angles. One angle is for those in pain, one is for those who want to help those in pain, and the third leg of this is getting into the medical community itself. Up When you
100%.
talk about upstream, it's like talking to the doctors when the doctor is faced with somebody like that comes in like you have come in, instead of saying it's all in your head, they can say, hey, there's pain coaching out there. Because a lot of those
Yep.
doctors just don't know.
No, they have no idea. So first of all, my $20,000 throwaway number was like I threw a big number out
Yeah.
there as a silly example to the fact of what a great saving this would be for an insurer. Like that cost isn't even close to what pain coaching costs. I mean, we're talking about, pain coaching is equivalent to taking yourself out for a steak.
Yeah.
This is not an expensive thing. Coaching is certainly less than $100 for a session. And soon enough, insurance will be picking that up. And so, yeah, please don't take my throwaway words. I was sort of misspeaking there. So yes, absolutely. Serving all three of those communities, and a big push, like you said, is really my own primary care doctor had no idea what pain coaching was, not a clue. So the book that I wrote, the reframing pain that you've mentioned, what it does, and please go and grab that. It's about 120 odd pages, I think, and it breaks the book's broken into three parts. The first part is explaining that whole notion of what pain is. So a little bit of the pain neuroscience education, and it says everyday terms. I've written it so ideally a 13-year-old can read it. I want young people to read it, or somebody honestly who is in the fog of pain to be able to read it. And there's a lot of deliberate repetition in that, not because anybody's, not good at reading. It's repetition because we know repetition with pain helps the brain understand what's going on. So I explain first of all what is going on in the brain with pain. The second third of the book is really some of those tools and things that we can do, the menu of things that we can do to help bring the pain experience down. And I've got things on there like trigger response plans. So when you go into a pain flare, instead of going, oh my gosh, what can I do? We already have a plan. We have a plan of, we know that one, two, and three things work, and it's going to be taped up inside the kitchen cabinet, or it's going to be in your phone as the first photograph you look at, or whatever it is. And you're going to have a plan, and all you need to do is to know you're going to look in the cabinet, and there it is. So we have resources like a trigger response plan, and then the last third of the book is a combination of resources, but it also explains what is pain coaching. So I explain, what is coaching, what does a session look like, how do you find a coach, those sorts of things. And then there's a sliver in the book at the back which talks about how to become a pain coach for those people that might be interested. So yeah, I try and cover it all. And really, I tried to write something that when I was sort of newly diagnosed, I found that there were two types of books. One that was like so dumbed down that it wasn't really very helpful at all, or it was so far at the other extreme that it was so sort of medical scientific that it was hard to read. So I tried to create something that sort of explains what's going on, but then gives me some practical tools in a really easy and digestible sort of way. And I just wanted to give it away. So I'm no author, but it's sort of like the collection of things that I figured out and very easy to use.
I love that. I love that. And you're talking over on Substack these days. Talk a little bit about what your plans are over there.
Yeah, so I'm going to, all the resources that I find, I'm going to be sticking everything I can find on Substack, all of the resources and all the episodes and all the recordings and all the blogs and all the writing. I'm going to put everything over on Substack. Yeah.
Awesome. And that you can find at alexcrowther.substack.com.
Yep.
Thank you so much for joining me, Alex. This has been an amazing conversation. I love your story and I love your mission.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
To learn more about Alex and to find his free guide to reframing pain, visit paincoachingacademy.com. And I want to thank you all for joining us today. If you're ready to amplify your voice, monetize your mission, and start attracting premium clients, your next step is simple. Head to coachesalchemist.com and schedule your free client acquisition audit. Be sure to join us for our next episode where we share what others are doing to raise the global frequency. And remember, change begins with you. You have all the power to change the world. Start today and get visible.